over all of it again. I would say we need to make it look like we're not advertising anything specific, like with that last section.
Right. Is anyone able to like record today in the audience or like something like that? I don't know. Because we don't really have wait, where's the can you guys hear the background noise?
Negative.
No.
On my end.
I have a background noise now?
Me. Mine.
No, I don't hear you.
Okay.
So we have 6 segments, right? Some segments should be longer than others. Segment 1, for example, could be like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or less.
I'm about to send this. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, so segment 1 could be done in like 5 minutes, and that leaves us 5 segments to do. Okay. Some of these we don't spend as much time on. Segment 4 is going to be longer than 3. 5 will be longer. 5 and 4 will be longer. 6 can be explained pretty simply. Yes, segment 6 can be a shorter one. A lot of those concepts can be explained easily. Segment 1 can be shorter. Segment 2 and 3 are moderate, and then segment 4 and 5 are the longest. At least that's how I'm seeing it, in terms of the amount of detail to cover. So 1 and 6 the shortest, 2 and 3 moderate, and then 4 and 5 the longest. In terms of budgeting times, is 30 minutes. For those 2 sections, say each of those segments is 15 minutes, that's 30 minutes, at least 30 divided by 4. So we can go for, let's see, let's say that would be 15. No, let's say we did 10 minutes. 10 minutes is 20. So let's see. Okay, so let's do this. Sections 1 and 6 get 5 minutes. Sections 2 and 3 each get 10 minutes, and sections 4 and 5 get 15.
Awesome, good. I don't think we'll really have to schedule them. Like, we can feel the.
Well, it's nice.
The length of the.
To do so.
Starting in 2 minutes.
Yep, that's correct. I'm just thinking about how to organize time, because we don't want to spend so much time on one segment that then we just like get over to 3 o'clock and it's like, oh crap, we haven't discussed all of this over here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course. No, it makes sense that you put timestamps on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have 62 people here. Welcome, everyone. We will be beginning in like 1 minute.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3. How many people do we have in the audience right now?
62.
Ooh, nice. Good to have some returning folks. Welcome back, everybody. So everyone who is new to this, highly recommend you watch weeks 1 and 2. To everyone who's returning, thank you for coming back and seeing us again. Thank you for spending your Saturday afternoons with us.
well, we can start now.
Okay.
Who does the first one? I could do the first.
Okay, go on.
Okay. So, lucid dreaming techniques. This is gonna be a big session. So, you guys might want to take notes because this is gonna get like filled with terminology, and you will probably get lost. So first segment we have is the distinction between dialed and wild techniques. Dialed, D-I-L-E, is dream initiated lucid dream. Simply becoming lucid inside of a dream. Like for example, you could be like inside of a dream, and you see like you're like, huh, like you see someone flying, for example. People don't fly in real life. I suppose you know that. And you become lucid. That's a dream initiated lucid dream. The second one, second category is wild, wake initiated lucid dream. It's simply going from waking to lucid dreaming smoothly, like falling asleep lucidly. Uh, this can be done through the use of anchors. We will talk about wild anchors later on. Uh, let me. Okay. So there's like few terms we like to discuss. There's initiation, incubation, and induction. Uh, so first off, initiation. This refers like I don't want to say some damn things. Can you take over for a
Yes.
minute, Skyfall, please?
Yes. I can do. I can. All right, no problem. So basically, initiated or initiation. This refers to the fact that this is how something begins. And so for dream initiated lucid dream, wake initiated lucid dream, you're getting lucid from inside the dream. So you're beginning lucidity from inside the dream, or you're beginning lucidity directly from waking. That's really all that is. Incubation is where you take a concept. So for example, a specific idea, a specific image or scene, and you take a concept and you think about it to the point where it manifests in a dream. That's called incubation. And induction is basically causing something to happen. And so all these techniques are a lot of the techniques here are induction techniques. The purpose is to get you to have lucid dream. That's what induction is. It's causing something to happen.
All right. Well, the section is already over.
No, it's not.
In 3
No.
minutes.
No.
Oh yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Day techniques and what night techniques. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm just confused. All right.
Do you want to go ahead? Or
Yeah. What are night techniques? It's basically techniques you perform like before falling asleep or during an awakening. Uh, they usually like have more like a direct impact on the lucidity you'll have during the night. Day techniques are something you perform during the day, so they'll have more of an indirect impact, but they're still really useful. For example, SAT, which we'll talk about later, is a day technique, and mild, for example, is a night technique. Um, you can use both day and night techniques, and it increases generally the effectiveness. Like you'll have more lucids overall.
So one thing to note is day techniques focus almost exclusively on awareness. There's two things you can really do during the day: awareness and well, actually, it's three things: awareness, critical thinking, and perspective memory training. So focusing on awareness, being aware of things, focusing on your critical thinking that goes along with the awareness, critical awareness, and then perspective memory training. So for example, with mild during the day, you can train yourself to notice, like to train yourself to work with intentions. It's something we discussed previously, training your perspective memory through exercises. And so those are kind of how day techniques go. And the night techniques can work through intention. They can work through direct awareness, so being aware as you transition into a dream, or boosting your overall awareness. And the intention and direct awareness ones, so that'd be like mild and wild, for example, are the more common. And then you have things like SSLD that are about awareness. We'll get to that later.
Yep.
That's segment 1.
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
If you want to do it, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Should I do segment 2?
Sure.
Okay. Segment 2, day techniques. So first of all, we're just going to cover every single day technique that we sort of see as good techniques or that are large in the lucid dreaming community, which should be mentioned. So first of all, we have SAT, which stands for Sporadic Awareness Technique. So what does this consist of? You might, when you think of a day technique, think of just doing many reality checks throughout the day. And this isn't really a good idea. First of all, reality checks isn't really the right term for testing your state. Instead, you should say state tests, because dreams are also real, but like they're just different states. So generally, when we talk about day techniques, that's the first thing that comes to mind. However, it's not very reliable to do that. Simply random reality checks throughout the day, because you're not really becoming critical when you do it. So criticality is key to this practice, and awareness is also key to this practice, hence sporadic awareness technique. You need to become sporadically aware of your of whether or not you are dreaming. You have to ask yourself this critical question, and I'm explaining this terribly. And you have to ask yourself seriously if you are dreaming, and become aware of your surroundings and yourself and your mind and thought processes. And you need to ask yourself, how did I get here? Or why am I doing this? Or should I be here? And then whether or not you're dreaming should become apparent. If you become aware, I'm currently watching a cow fly through the sky, you'll probably be like, that doesn't make sense, I'm dreaming. So if you do this throughout the day and really take the time to question reality, you will be doing SAT, Sporadic Awareness Technique, which is a very reliable technique, and I'd say probably the most popular day technique. And remember that it's super important to be aware and critical as you do perform this technique, because if you simply do it mindlessly, like for example, if you simply try to put your finger through your palm or something like that, that doesn't always work in dreams. In dreams, the only reliable, truly reliable state test is mental state tests, where you become critical or aware. Because physical state tests never guarantee a 100% success rate. So if you're simply randomly doing uncritical state tests throughout the day, that might not harbor as many good results as you would like to see. Also, on the topic of how often to do this, well, I think it's important to cover the idea that you probably shouldn't be using alarms to do this. The idea is that you sort of do it sporadically, especially in strange situations that you find yourself that could be dreamlike throughout the day, rather than using an alarm. Because if you use an alarm or something, you're sort of like assuming that that alarm will go off in your dream in order to have to do it in your dream. But the idea is to get used to doing it in waking state in order to do it in dreaming state and get lucid from that. Would you like to ask?
Oh yes, there are a few things. So one is just phrasing, mindlessness begets mindlessness. So if you're mindless during the day, you're going to be more or less mindless in your dreams. Doing something mindlessly basically has no benefit to you whatsoever with lucid dreaming, because the point of being lucid is to be like aware of what you're doing, and being mindless is the opposite of being aware of what you're doing and of what you're experiencing. And so being presently aware in the present moment. So present moment awareness and critical thinking are absolute requirements for a good state test. One thing I'd also note about physical state tests, there are like two of them that are more reliable than the rest of the physical ones, because most physical state tests work entirely off of dream control, which means if you think you're awake, like if you believe that you're awake and you're doing a state test, and especially if you're doing a mindless one, then it's probably going to give you a waking result because it most of them work off of dream control. There are two exceptions, the being the nose pinch one, where you hold your nose and breathe through it or try to, and the rereading one, where you repeatedly examine either text or something complex. But any state test can fail, and so no state test is 100% reliable. And so being critically aware and actually questioning and observing your surroundings and being able to notice dream signs is very important. And that's really what you're doing. You're looking, when you're doing this, you're looking for something like out of place in any way, or something abnormal or unusual, or something that has a high chance of happening in your dreams, which we will get to in a second. But that's basically the kind of things you're looking for. You're not wanting to be kind of prompted by external stimuli to do these. In a sense, you want to be, mindful of what you're experiencing and aware, and be able to do this by yourself without being externally prompted by something else.
Right. Okay, I will move on to the second technique that we are presenting, which is the least combined technique. So the first important thing that you need to know about this is that it is technically a combination, as it says in the name, of a day and night technique. So it does include elements of something else that we're going to go into later, which is auto-suggestion as the night part. However, I think it's that part isn't as important as the day part. So the idea of thoroughly combined is essentially you're doing SAT. However, you're doing it specifically at moments, ideally, that you believe are very dreamlike, or things that happen often in your dreams, which is always a good idea to track, by the way. And when you do it, you're paying specific attention to taking just a minute or so to think about really critically not only your present state, if what you're doing right now makes sense. For example, I'm sat at my computer, should I be here? But also what you have done so far, and if I have any like problem with remembering that, because that's often the case for dreams. So for example, if I were to do it right now, I'd be like, how did I get here? What have I done today? Well, I got up, I had a shower, I had breakfast, and now I'm here. I think it makes sense. I was planning to do it. I was planning to do this session for a long time. I'm thinking critically like this, and I'm working out that it does make sense that I'm here doing this right now. I believe that, especially in the resources channel that we have, Reese, who wrote it, mentioned that it was important he recommends that we look at LaBerge's sort of version of the technique, which he outlined in Edgeworld. And in that version, I believe it goes over more, it's called the reflection intention technique. And it sort of goes a lot over the idea of, it incorporates intention into this practice as well. Therefore, you sort of, if I recall correctly, because I haven't read this in a little while, you imagine what you would do if you were lucid in this situation. So let's say if I was dreaming right now, what would I do? I would maybe jump out of my window and fly around the town or something fun like that, which will incorporate intention into your technique as well as the reflection.
There is
do you have
another.
anything to add?
Yes, I do actually, because there's another term that relates to this in terms of state testing this way. It is called memory tracing or memory retracing. And so it's just like Crystal described, you're going back through your memories since you last thought you woke up. You're looking for things like time skips. You're looking for anything out of place. Like, what am I doing in Los Angeles? I've only ever been there once before, and why am I driving a motorcycle again? So so you're looking for something that's out of place in some way, or something like that, and you're asking those questions like, okay, well, what was I doing? How did I get here? Why am I doing this? And you're going back through, just like she was saying, and then you're deciding, well, if I was dreaming right now, what would I do? Thinking about that and considering, okay, well, I'm going to notice, when I am dreaming. And so yeah, all these things, the sporadic awareness technique, the Tholi's combined, and then the dialed hooking we're going to get to in a second, they all kind of have related components. All of them involve being aware at some point during the day. They all involve attaching that awareness to either something. So in either just doing it when you think about it, in the case of sporadic awareness technique, or also doing it when you notice something out of place, or when you notice something dreamlike, like with combined, or doing it when you notice a specific thing that is a recurring dream sign, which is what we're going to get to in a moment with what a dialed hook is, which is basically something that appears often in your dreams, like an action or a thing that you do often. And so when you do that thing in real life, you're using that as a trigger to question whether or not you're dreaming and to be aware. And so all these are related to one another.
Indeed. Thank you. I think we're now gonna go on to the next technique which we're presenting, which is dial hooking, which is essentially SAT, but there's a specific trigger for it. In particular. So, for example, if in my dreams there was always I did a lot of talking or walking in my dreams, then I might decide to dial hook walking or some other similar action like that. And then I'll become aware whenever I am walking in real life, in waking state, and then I will hopefully in dreams then be able to become more commonly aware of um, of when I'm dreaming, because if that dream sign keeps popping up in a way, or that specific action or that hook. So in this case, we're using the term hook as that thing which you're becoming aware whenever it happens or whenever you do it. So for example, it could be also a strong emotion. So if you're feeling very strong emotions in dreams often, then whenever you feel a strong emotion in waking state, you could become aware of that as well. A very well-known example of this is Q-Tiff. Is that how you pronounce his name? Q-Tiff's dial taking gravity. So just becoming aware when of gravity in waking state, which allowed him to get a lot of lucids in dreaming state. Does that cover it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Now, number 4, I'm not as familiar with, so that's yours. And then we'll get into the
Smile.
controversial one in a few minutes.
Yeah, the controversial one for sure. Smile is essentially it stands for Sensei's Mnemonic Induction. No, Sensei's Mnemonic Induced Lucid Experiences, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a fun name, and I'm not too well versed on this because he did about, I think, like an hour-long video on it on his channel, which I
Over a
haven't gotten
year
around
ago,
to
I
seeing.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
I
long
can do
time
this
ago.
part. I can do
Yeah,
this segment.
go for it. Go
Okay,
for it.
sure, go
Yeah.
ahead. I can explain it basically, but not really.
Yeah. Okay. So, in his the smile technique, he recommends simply just first off, a requirement is having a good dream recall. So you could have a few, like tens of dreams recalled, and basically you want to go through every dream quickly, like one dream per, like one dream and then another, and you simply want to really quickly find one or two ways that you could have become lucid in that dream, and basically you want to do that really quickly, like 10 5 no 5 10, like 100 times, and it's gonna like help you with prospective memory, and yeah, I I'm not too well versed. I'm gonna recommend you guys to watch his guide, I guess, but it should be a pretty quick overview of the technique.
I'll add that he did do like a very short overview of it in OmniLucid in a post. So it's a very short overview though, and yeah, you can read that as well. I think it's under user guides. It's a It's a developing technique, I'd say. It's I think it has. I don't know many people who do it, but I think it has the potential to be pretty reliable. Okay, I think that covers it. The next technique that we're going to talk about is the next day technique is ADA, all day awareness. This is a very controversial technique, and I'm sure all of us have something to say about it. And every single person, I'll just say from my personal experience, that every single person I have asked about awareness or ADA has given me a different answer. Completely different answer, it tends to be. So, ADA is being aware all day long. I'd like to first just mention the way that I believe Mizik presents it, which is that essentially the practice is that you become aware of your surroundings and all of your experiences. And then on top of that, you become aware that you are the one experiencing all of these things as well. It's pretty confusing, but like imagine look at your wall right now, or just pay attention to what you're experiencing right now. If you're paying specific attention to it, then you'll be aware, especially because I asked you to, that you're paying attention. You are the one experiencing what you're experiencing and paying attention to what you're paying attention to. So it's like this idea of being aware of your awareness and being aware of your experiences and what you're experiencing. I think
Meta awareness, yeah.
this is sort of the way that Mizik presented it, I believe, and the way that Luna Swan presented it to me like almost a year ago now. Um, However, there are many definitions circulating, and I think one of the main reasons why it's controversial is because to do this all day long would be very draining. I don't really doubt how much. Personally, I think that it would help your lucid dreaming a lot because if you're aware that you're the one experiencing what you're experiencing and you're aware of what you're experiencing in a dream, that will cause you to be lucid because you'll become aware that it's a dream because you'll be aware of what you're experiencing. But if you're doing this all day long, that's very draining on a lot of people. And it doesn't really it it would be incredibly hard to keep it up all day long. And so many people instead will recommend that you just do SAT, sporadic awareness technique. However, people have told success stories with ADA. However, many people question them and whether they are completely real or completely going to be ADA or like whatever. I don't know. It's super controversial, and not many people would recommend that you try it. However, it is a technique out there. What does everyone else have to add or
I got a
completely
couple
destroy
things.
me on?
I got a couple things. One, it took me when I was first learning stuff. It took me several months to wrap my head around meta awareness. Just saying, like it took me a while to actually wrap my head around this and come up with what the heck does this even mean? Because it is confusing. Like, how do you quote unquote feel this way? And I'm not a very feeling oriented person. I'm a detail oriented person, and so I had to discover what awareness meant to me and not what it meant to other people, which was the thing. Because other people talk about how it feels a certain way or this. I'm not a feeling person. I'm a details person, and so it just completely works. So I took it and made it analytical because that's how I do things in life, is I make them analytical. And so in this case, that's sort of what I did with it. So to me, awareness is more conceptual than it is feeling, and that's kind of how I think about it. And I will say, sometimes the all day is part is taken a little too literally. Some people interpret it as much as you can instead of like all the time. And so I feel like, some of it's taken a little literally. Definitely, I think doing something like this all day, every day would be really difficult or would be kind of a pain for most people. And so, yeah, and there's also some reports that, you can get very similar results with sporadic awareness technique and with being aware as strategically throughout the day rather than trying to be aware all day. And so the question does come with, is it too much work, or is it like, is there a diminishing return, like for being too aware, or is there a benefit? And so that's really the question there. And this is honestly not something we're going to tell you. Like, if you want to experiment with this, go ahead. You find this out for yourself. If you can maintain something like this without draining yourself, great, be my guest. We're just letting you know kind of what most people have experienced or what like a lot of people kind of think about it, which again, that's why this one is kind of controversial because there's so many different things people talk about.
Right. Liam, have you got anything to add onto this?
No, not really.
Okay. Um,
I'm taking
cool.
this one.
Yeah. You can go ahead, Stifle.
All right. Dialed night techniques, because we're getting into my favorite. So basically, techniques you do at night to induce to induce a lucid dream, specifically dream initiated lucid dream. Well, the main things that come into this category for the most part are mild or anything intention related. I will also say, while we don't include SSILD in this, as it's seen as kind of a hybrid, its intention is as a dial technique, but it's also usable as a wild anchor, which is why it's called a hybrid. But that's something we're going to discuss later, so we're not going to discuss it here. We're just going to discuss night techniques that specifically deal with intention. And what's the first thing that comes to mind? Mild, or as it is actually called, the mnemonic induction of lucid dreams. Now, I did mention this actually last week with respect to intentions. This was invented by Dr. Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University for his doctoral dissertation. I need a little bit of water. Okay, so basically, what is it? There are several different steps, and we're going to talk about some variations. I have my variation, which is heavily influenced by Dr. Kristen Lamarca, who is really the one I recommend everybody to read in terms of a modern interpretation of mild. We'll start a little bit with the original version, and we'll go into some differences. So, it starts with setting up dream recall, making sure that you can remember your dreams, and then going to bed because you're going to want to be able to remember dreams. My recommendation when you're doing mild is the best dreams to use are a combination of A, dreams that are recent, and B, dreams that you can remember well. The good combination of those two are going to be the best dreams you can use, in my opinion. And so, mild was originally intended as um, a technique to be done during an awakening or a wake back to bed during the night. And so that's how it was kind of originally set up. And so you start by kind of recalling that dream that you had and going through it. And then LaBerge has people basically, setting an intention by basically thinking about repeating an intention to yourself of, like the next time you're going to notice that you're dreaming, or next time you're dreaming, you'll notice that you're dreaming. And then you go back at the same time, and this is the part where there's one of the parts where there's modifications, but you go back at the same time and you imagine yourself back in that dream, except you imagine that you became lucid. And what you would do if you were lucid, and you kind of repeat this until you fall asleep, is basically kind of what LaBerge wants. He wants like the last thought you have to be your intention as you're falling asleep. Now, this is a pretty workable thing for some people, and it's not a workable thing for others, and that's why there have been some modifications over the years. And for one, there are several key modifications. One is the addition of doing it before bed as well as doing it during an awakening, because I'll just say it up front, I'm an opportunist. Take all the opportunities you can get. And so, why pass up the opportunity to do it before bed and just enhance the intention? And so that's one thing. Another thing that has been done is to kind of modify the process itself in a couple of key ways. One of them is, instead of constantly thinking about your intention as well as thinking about the dream, you go back through the dream and you script that dream. So if you start by, with the intention as a sort of a simple decision that you make, and then you go through the stream, you find dream signs in it, you find things that are out of place, and you do what's called re-scripting it. And that's where you basically go through where you rewrite the dream. That's where you see that step 4 in the original mild guide, where you're rewriting the dream, you're imagining yourself becoming lucid, and you're imagining yourself doing what you would like to do while you're dreaming. And then there's this rehearsal step where you're repeating that dream from beginning to end. I'm going off of Dr. Kristen Lamarca's mild, just for reference again. You're repeating this rescripted dream from beginning to end, and including the part where you were lucid and what you would do while lucid. And then the last thing you do is you remind yourself of your intention to notice, that you're dreaming when you're next dreaming, and you go to bed. And so that's her kind of modified version of it, and she calls it the 3 R's: rescript, rehearse, remind, and that's how she describes it. Another thing she describes is, of course, doing it before bed as well as doing it during awakenings. Basically, doing it throughout the night, and you can even do it after you wake up, as well as sort of like a reminder for the next day. And So that's one way to do it. Another thing is timing versus falling asleep to it. So doing it for say like until you feel that your intention is set versus falling asleep, or doing it for say like 20 minutes and then going to sleep, whichever comes first. And so that's sort of how it's been modified. I'm looking more at dream signs as well as kind of my approach, looking at the dream signs, looking to find those things out of place to help you cue into the fact that you're dreaming. And you can use either recurring dream signs, which is one of Dr. LaBerge's favorites, and Dr. Lamarca likes these as well too. So these are dream signs that are repeated, that come up in your dreams multiple times. There are different categories of these as well. And these are things that you'll find by rereading your dream journal. You'll find these common patterns. And then there are just any old run-of-the-mill dream signs, like anything that's maybe not recurring. For example, I'm not often driving motorcycles in my dreams, but for me, it is a blind person to be driving a motorcycle is pretty out of place. So that's a pretty big dream sign, even though it's not a recurring one. It's a pretty big dream sign. And so there's non-recurring dream signs, just things that are out of place, and there's recurring ones, repeated themes. For example, traveling for me is a recurring dream sign. If I'm in a place that's not where I live, it's a recurring dream sign for me. Then there's auto-suggestion, which is generally seen if you actually read in Dr. LaBerge's Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming in chapter 3, where he discusses mild. That chapter is Waking Up in the Dream World, by the way. He does mention auto-suggestion initially as an intention setting method, and basically repeating an intention to yourself as you fall asleep. That's basically what that is. But mild was actually created because it is more effective than that. It is something that auto-suggestion is something people use. I will say, for most of you here, many of you, well, maybe not most of you, many of you here are aware that the most common misconception surrounding mild on the internet is confusing it with auto-suggestion. It's people saying that mild is about repeating a phrase to yourself as you're falling asleep. That is the most common misconception, and that is basically a misquoting of Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming that has been spread like wildfire because the internet is a game of telephone and no one checks the original sources of anything anymore. And that's basically where we are today.
Okay. There we go. I think that's segment 3 covered. None of us really chipped in on that one too. Do we have anything to say?
Wasn't there auto suggestion? I don't really want to talk about it.
Steffel, didn't you cover that sort of?
I covered it briefly at the end. I don't know if you wanted to cover it as part of Tholi's thing or not, but I did cover what it was just now.
Well,
Could briefly
auto-suggestion.
go over like VIL maybe if we
No,
have
that's
time.
that's later.
Wild is in
Yeah.
section 5.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
Should we go into section 4? Do I pretend that I know what wilds, how to wild?
I can do section 4.
I
Or
can do section 4 too.
Anyone can.
I mean,
Okay. Who does section 4? The silence speaks so much.
Heads or tails?
Yes. Tails.
Someone flip a coin.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Let's just say I do it.
Because
Everyone speaks up and does it.
Wait, is it
Yeah.
preparing
Yeah,
to
I'll
flip?
do it. I'll do it.
It's heads.
okay, well I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay.
But I
Go on,
will
Steph.
I will let everyone add things in. Obviously, I think we can all talk about this a bit.
Okay,
Like I'm not.
go on,
I'll stop before DCIM because I'm not as versed in that. So I'll stop there.
Go on, Steph.
Okay, so WILD stands for Wake Initiated Lucid Dreaming. It is the category. It's also the primary technique, and basically, it's kind of an umbrella. So WILD is like a catch-all for anything that you do that involves falling asleep consciously or falling asleep with awareness. It's kind of a catch-all. And WILD is the most modular of all lucid dreaming techniques, and the reason for that is there's so many different things you can do with WILD. And so first off, what is an anchor? An anchor is a large metal object that is attached to a ship that you throw into the ocean to keep the ship steady. Oh wait, no, we're talking about wild. Okay. A wild anchor is something that you pay attention to as you are falling asleep. The point of a wild anchor is to keep your awareness active, to keep yourself aware as you fall asleep. And this is where wild is truly versatile because the only limit on what can be used as a wild anchor is really your own imagination and how crazy you want to make it. Honestly, those are like the only limits to what you can use as a wild anchor, which is why 90+% of new quote unquote techniques out there, especially from beginners, are going to be just variations on a theme, and all of them have to do with wild anchors. It's just someone thinks it's a new concept, but it's not. Like the same concept, the reason why we call these like all wild technique versus all of their own techniques is because they all are designed not only to get you lucid, like all lucid dreaming techniques are, but to get lucid in the exact same way. They're all designed to get you to fall asleep with awareness. And so, what is awareness and passive awareness? Because the key point about wild is that it's a balancing act. And this is one of the, every lucid dreaming technique is a skill. Wild is more of a skill probably than most of the others in the sense that it is a balancing act. You're kind of have to learn to more about yourself while you do this. You have to learn about how you fall asleep as a person. And the goal is to balance your awareness so that, too little awareness, you fall asleep and you're not aware. Too much awareness, you stay awake. You need that little bitty sweet spot where you fall asleep, but you're aware as you transition. And so that takes a lot of practice. The amount of awareness required can vary from night to night, can vary based on the time of night that you're doing the technique. It can even change subtly while you're doing it. Things to look out for, regardless. Well, actually, I'll go into the two types of anchors. There's external anchors and there's mental anchors. So external anchors are things you can perceive with your senses. Generally, that would be sound or touch, because we generally keep our eyes closed, so not visual. And so you can hear something or touch something in some way, and you're aware of that sensation and you're tracking it as you fall asleep. One limitation on external anchors is as we are falling asleep, we tend to lose some of our awareness of external sensation. And one thing that can cause us to do is if we become aware of losing that external sensation, it can snap us back awake for some of us. Some people can handle this just fine. Some people get snapped awake. I think experience has a lot to do with it. Um, the other side of this is mental anchors. And those are things that anything you can think of, basically, can be a dream scene, could be counting, could be imagine like a song lyric. It could be anything you could think of. And you're keeping yourself aware of it as you fall asleep. Now, here's some things to look out for. Hypnagogic hallucinations. These are either these are multisensory or sensory hallucinations. They can involve any of your senses, most commonly vision, so sight, hearing, and touch. These are the most common hypnagogic hallucinations, visuals being the most common, then probably auditory and tactile. And so these are things that you can experience as you're transitioning to sleep. Why do we experience them? Because we are actually transitioning from not accessing our external sensory information and like that content kind of being generated by our brain as we are, as it is when we are dreaming. So we're in that sort of transition from being awake to being asleep. So we can experience these hallucinations. They can be startling to some people who've never experienced them before, myself included, actually. They can take some getting used to. Some people have found that meditation helps them get used to hypnagogic hallucinations. And the flip side of this is also hypnopompia. So these are hallucinations you experience as you're transitioning from sleep to waking. They're not as reported as often as hypnagogic hallucinations, but they exist and they are there. I also want to point out a very common misconception, and that is that wild somehow causes or requires sleep paralysis. This is not the case. And it is one of the more common wild misconceptions out there. And a lot of people either will generally misinterpret hypnagogia for sleep paralysis in one case, and then another case, like misinterpret losing sensation with sleep paralysis. And those aren't the same thing. Sleep paralysis is when you are awake and aware during REM atonia. This is because either your REM sleep atonia triggers too early or it doesn't wear off until after you've woken up. These is not a normal thing for the average person to experience more than, say, a couple times in their life. Some people are more prone to it than others. If you are someone who is prone to sleep paralysis, then sure, you can experience it more easily when doing wild. But if you're not, like most people, then you're not going to. Finally, the other primary misconception is that you have to lay still when you do wild. That's a really common one. You don't. You can move. You can scratch your itch. You can swallow. One thing I would just say is do what you would normally do while falling asleep. because trying to force yourself to fall asleep differently outside of that awareness you have on your anchor can actually keep you awake. And the reason for this, for example, trying to force yourself to stay still if you normally move actually increases muscle tension. And so now you are more tense, and now it's harder to fall asleep. And so it works to counter purposes to what you're trying to do. Finally, before we get to DEILD, I'll let them cover DEILD and DCIM. I'll let you guys cover that. Finally, before we get there, I would just mention passive awareness. What is passive awareness? It's what is usually sought after when you are doing wild. So what is it? Well, have you ever listened to, say, like background music while you're completing a task, while you're doing something? It's sort of tracking versus focusing. So focusing is often used in association with wild, but to me, focusing implies too much attention because right now you should be focusing on my words. You are hearing me speak to the exclusion of hopefully everything else if you want to actually learn what you're hearing. And it requires a good level of attention for you to actually process the information that you are hearing from me right now. Passive awareness would be if you were, say, on your phone scrolling through TikTok and you just happened to notice that I was talking, you were listening to words here and there, you were able to track it, you were aware of it, and you maintained awareness of it, but it wasn't like an intense focus. And that's kind of what wild anchor awareness is like for a lot of people. You want to be able to track it without being too aware. And it's really, at the end of the day, it's an experiment for you to find out what works and be prepared and be patient. Patience is very important here. If you are going to practice with wake initiated lucid dreaming, be patient and be prepared to practice consistently and spend a lot of time on it to be able to find the balance that works for you. A good way to know that you found that balance is if you're paying, like, using the same anchor, paying the same amount of attention as you're falling asleep, and sometimes you fall asleep without awareness, and sometimes you stay awake, but there's an even balance. That's kind of how you know you're close. And I will end there, and then we can go into DLD and DCIM.
Okay,
Would you like
well,
to?
I could do both, yeah, do both.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So, dream, dream exit initiated lucid dream, DEILD, is a technique that revolves around wild, first of all, but it's specifically done after wake up from a dream. Uh, like you uh, instantly like wake up from a dream, then instantly you start trying to get back inside of a dream. And this can be really quick. This can take a couple seconds or a couple minutes, and it will just be easy to stream. It's a good thing to have, like as a tool, if you like happen to come across an awakening like that. Not much else to say
There
about it.
is,
It's kind
there's
of a normal one.
Um,
Okay.
I'd like to say,
Yeah, Skyfall.
sorry, there are several things actually to say about it. One,
Yeah.
generally when you do DEILD, what you're doing is you're not fully waking up. You're using what's called the hypnopompic state. I talked about hypnopompic transition earlier, where you're transitioning from sleep to wakefulness. So instead of fully waking up, as you're waking up, you pay attention to the dream that you're just in. The way I've done it is I like keep going, like acting out what I was just doing in the dream, and that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And so you're using your dream basically as an anchor, and then you fall back asleep into it. It is generally done within seconds, and that's the part I think that was missing. Is it's not just waking up and falling back asleep. You are using that previous dream generally as basically a wild anchor, and it is something
Yeah.
that's done quickly. It's using that hypnopompic state, so you're not fully awake, and so you're primed to be able to fall back asleep much more easily, and you're already relaxed than if you were with wild. The other thing I would add is Dale doesn't work per se if you're startled awake. So if you're startled awake and you're practically fully awake at that point, then that opportunity is practically gone for just the vast majority of people.
I'd like to add that it's basically just like a fast wild, like super
Mhm.
fast because you never fully woke up, and
Mhm.
you can very easily anchor on the hypnopompic and hypnagogic hallucinations. But you don't necessarily have to go back into your past dream. You can like wild into whatever situation you want to be in if you want to.
Yeah.
I think I remember because it is a wild. It's just like a type of wild. the category. In my personal experience, I once woke up from a lucid dream, was like, I didn't really like that dream scene or that situation. I want to be in a different place. So I just did, because I never fully woke up, and I just went into, a more fun and interesting dream scene that I wanted to be in. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to go back into your past dream, but you can. Liam, have you covered DCIM?
Yeah, it's
You
kind
can.
of hard one to cover, but
You can
I'll
outline
try.
it sort of. Yeah.
So
Okay.
DCIM is basically a more structured version of DAILD, where you try to dissociate, which is basically like uh, exit your body or something. Imagine yourself exiting your body. It's kind of tied in with the astral projection like trend. So it's kind of hard for me because I've
So basically,
yeah
dissociating from your body
yeah
just means that you are basically trying to lose awareness of your external sensations.
yeah.
It's pretty
It
that
also
concept's
like
straightforward. Yeah.
yeah it also like it heavily relies on hypnopompic hallucinations, and it has some kind of fail safes. Uh, if you don't um, if you don't succeed like the first kind of minutes, you have some things to attempt if you haven't like
It's yeah.
succeeded in like having the
It's
DCIM
yeah, it's
stream.
more of a very specific way to do wild, like telling you what anchors to use and what specific
Yeah.
things to do. It's more of a here, do these specific things versus here's how it works in the same sense. One thing the paper noted is they are looking to do more research on how this works, and so they are just getting started with that. That was in that paper. It's a really long paper. It's a pretty complex one, but basically, there are certain like exercises they give you to do is like very specific means of wild anchors, and then they also like give you certain like things like, oh, if you haven't succeeded by X amount of time or X amount of things, then you wake yourself up. One of the things that separates DCIM from DELD is that it does involve alarms. And one of my personal critiques of it is alarms tend to be startling for a lot of people. And so if you're startled awake, falling back asleep tends to be quite a bit harder. And so that's kind of one of my main critiques with it, is that it involves alarms in particular.
Yeah. All right. I think that's covered. Sorry for my like
You're fine, Liam. You're
bad
fine.
explanations.
You're fine.
But
Okay, you're fine.
yeah, shallow explanations.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah. All right. Let's
Right.
hop the one.
Um,
I'll leave it to
hybrid
Crystal, I
techniques.
think.
Should I do this? Okay.
I
Yeah.
guess so.
Hybrid techniques. So techniques which aren't necessarily dialed nor wild. Sometimes this means that they can go either way, and sometimes this means that they are like inherently sort of like people see it in different ways. First of all, we have SSILD, which is like you
Senses
can see it in multiple ways. Like
lucidium.
it has what?
No, I thought you meant that you were searching for the term. Like, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just go.
Okay. SSILD consists of doing cycles of becoming aware of your senses before going to sleep. You can do this before sleep or in an awakening, but it's definitely recommended to do it in an awakening. Essentially, what you do is you can spend some time doing some warm up cycles. So, like, I believe it's like 4 to 6 or around there of quick cycles of just a few seconds paying attention to what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and then what you're feeling.
Feeling.
And this essentially, it's important to point out, oh, I'm not seeing anything. Well, pay attention to the darkness of the back of your eyelids. That's what you're paying attention to. You shouldn't be expecting necessarily to see anything. That's not necessary at all. You shouldn't be expecting to see any, for example, like imagery or hypnagogic hallucinations. That's not necessary. You're just paying attention to what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, even if it's silence or blackness. You will do 4 to 6 short cycles of this to warm up, I believe, and then I think it's like 3 to 4, I'm not sure, longer cycles, which should last about 30 seconds per sense, I believe, before you can go to sleep after that, or you can go to sleep during it. But like, the idea is that this heightened state of awareness that you'll be in from becoming very aware of your senses will carry on into your dream, and this sort of like external awareness that you'll have will cause you to become lucid. There's many ways that this can work though, which means that basically you can have the awareness carried directly on as you fall asleep, which would basically be like a wild, because you're staying in this heightened state of awareness as you fall asleep, so that when you're dreaming, you'll still have this awareness, and then you'll be lucid. Or it can carry on in a more dialed idea where you're not exactly staying aware, obviously, as you're falling asleep, the same way that you're staying acutely aware during wild techniques. It might just help you, especially in my case, sort of achieve a lot of dialed dreams, simply because this heightened state of awareness before sleep will cause a generally higher level of awareness in dreams. And then my awareness sort of like goes up and down, and then when it peaks, I'll get lucid at some point in the dream. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I know that in my particular case, it's more of a dialed result rather than a wild result. However, what makes it a hybrid is that it can be like completely different for different people, or it can result in different types of lucid dreams. Does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, it can be used as a wild anchor. So like it wasn't intentionally meant for that purpose, but there's like 500 million other things in this world that can be used as a wild anchor. And so, people have found that, using that as a means of keeping yourself aware as you fall asleep has been something that works for some people. And so that is why SLD is called a hybrid, because people do use it as a wild anchor. The other thing to note is like people talk about getting false awakenings with it, and that's something that people experience where like you don't think you've fallen asleep yet, but you have, and you're actually in a false awakening. I will say from my personal experience when I've done wild, that most of my wilds end up in that type of situation where I fall asleep dreaming in my bed, and I can actually explain why too. I mean, think about this, for example. Dreams reflect often what we're thinking about, what we're aware of. And so if in my case for doing wilds, a lot of times I'm just aware of like, not really thinking about much, and aware of like my bed and things I'm experiencing. And so what's the last thing I was aware of? My own bedroom, the way my sheets feel. And so what am I dreaming about? I'm dreaming about that exact same thing. And so it actually makes a lot of sense that if you're doing SSILD and you fall asleep, kind of while doing it or right after doing it, that what are you being aware of? You're aware of what you're hearing and what you're feeling, your own bed, everything around you. And so it makes a lot of sense that you would transition into a dream that reflects that. And silence falls. You can hear a pin drop.
Right, I was
Yes.
distracted. Wild, have we gone over that, or did we just go over this? Okay, Wild. Wild is also controversial, for sure. Wild essentially is the idea that like that there's many ways of performing it. It stands for visually incubated lucid dreaming. So this is one of the ones where the I stands for incubation. And it does indeed rely on the idea of incubating. Well, there's so many different versions of it. It's just impossible to like cover in a specific way. I think one of the famous sort of famous, well-known ideas of one of the well-known guides and ways of presenting it is that you're essentially falling asleep with the intent of incubating a very specific dream scene into your dream, which will then cause you to become lucid, because you'll be essentially setting intention before to recognize this specific dream scene as the one which is a dream. So, for example, one way of doing it, which was in one guide, I don't remember whose, one way of doing it was presented as you try to incubate a specific dream scene where you are told by maybe a dream character to perform a state test or something like that, which will then cause you to become lucid. That is one way of seeing it. However, the problem with Wild is that there are so many ways of seeing it, and there are so many different representations of it. It just goes to show that if you are going to do Wild, you'll probably be doing it in your own way, and there's no specific way that works for everyone. I think incubation practice is a very massive sort of field of lucid dreaming, and you can't really cover it in just one technique. I'd say that there are many ways of presenting it. I believe Sensei had some stuff on incubation as well. I know Philip definitely did a video on it where he talked about how to incubate ideas into dreams through day techniques, setting intention for things to happen at night throughout the day. So there are many separate ways to do it, and there's a lot of controversy on that, and I'm sure other people want to chip in here, because I'm not sure entirely how to explain this. Yeah. Does anyone have anything to add?
All good. I think all good.
Go ahead.
I think it's good.
Oh,
You
okay. I thought you were just gonna say something. One thing like Wild is kind of one of those niche things. It's like one of those things. A lot of people, it's because it is an incubation thing. So it's basically like I said earlier with like the term incubation. You're trying to think about something to the point where, it just happens in your dream, and it's almost like a weird version of an intention for a sense, because you're like trying to force this thing to happen by thinking about it for a long time. It's never something I've actually personally done. I will say, in terms of techniques that are practiced, it's definitely in the minority of terms of what people do. Not a lot of people I've actually just witnessed practicing it and like doing it a lot. So this is one of those kind of things that a lot of people, it's heard about. It's like it's out there, but I don't know a lot of people who actually do this regularly.
I see, cool. Is that it for Wild or like for hybrid techniques? Wait, didn't we put oh, this
Yeah.
isn't
Yes.
the
There's this stuff.
my bad. There is more.
Mhm.
I
I'm
was looking
gonna
at
need
one thing.
there's a doctrine, or there's a concept I want to cover specifically for that relates to each of these that's not included.
Should I continue to go over EILD?
Oh, sure. But
As
like,
in, should
this
I
is
do it?
related to EILD. There's a specific concept that is important to it.
Okay. I can just go over. EILD stands for externally I- initiated,
Yeah.
I think.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, externally initiated lucid dreaming. This is a whole rabbit hole that you can go down, but generally isn't considered very reliable at all long term, even though there's been tons of experiments and work and research done about this. It generally hasn't amounted to very much reliable techniques or things for initiating lucid dreams through external use. Wow, we are definitely low on time. I suppose we'll have to go over for the sixth segment. Um, so one of the most popularly known externally techniques, which you can do just for yourself with no extra devices or anything other than simply an alarm or something, is rousis. Rousis essentially works by waking yourself up in the night, then probably with an alarm. Then you set another alarm to go off in maybe just a couple minutes, with a specific ringtone or something that would probably cause you to, which you'll then set intention to notice in your dream and become aware because of. And then you can fall asleep, hear this sound in your dream without waking up, ideally. And then that will cause you to become lucid. I believe that's the general idea behind Vasis. I think it's supposed to be a sound or an alarm because that's most accessible for most people. However, the concept itself can be extended definitely to light or feelings like vibration or something like that.
This is
However, there are many problems with this because in many cases people will simply get woken up by the alarm or they won't hear the alarm or they'll hear it and they won't like become aware or numerous other possibilities. And I think just to extend this quickly, I'll mention honorable mention. Remy is a lucid dreaming device. It's a type of mask which will shine light onto your eyes at a certain point while you're on REM sleep. And apparently that will get you lucid. And you'll become aware because you'll notice this light.
Okay.
However, it's not very reliable and did not have generally the best results for the same reasons that I outlined for Rousis. So I think it's sort of somewhat questionable to attempt to use EILD, especially if you're not like in a lab or something. So okay, what do people have to add?
Yes, I have a lot to add. Actually,
Yeah,
this
sure.
is I wanted to get see I wanted to discuss incorporation before you got into this actually, because underpinning all of this is a concept called incorporation. And it's really important to understand what incorporation is, because I'm going to discuss something else that is related to what is done in lucid dreaming, or like in sleep laboratories for lucid dreaming studies, because I actually have some knowledge about some of the things that are done there. So what is incorporation? Incorporation involves external sensory stimulation, well, in particular, the observation of external sensory input imagery. And this can happen naturally. Like, for example, say someone in the next room has their TV on and you're sleeping, and then there's a TV in your dream, and maybe it doesn't sound like exactly like what the other person's listening to, but you have that TV there because you're actually hearing the TV in the next room, and so the sound is making its way into your dream. The same thing with like light and as well, and vibration and touch. So incorporation can be a difficult thing. One thing I've learned from talking to people is that there are a lot of people who don't incorporate, and so right off the bat, that have issues incorporating. Right off the bat, incorporation is difficult to use as a technique because there are a lot of people. So for example, trying to, have them hear a sound in the dream, they just won't hear it or they'll ignore it. Or the same with like a light or a haptic vibration. And so for a lot of people, they just don't notice them. Then there's the other side of it where it's too intense and it wakes up. They wake people up. One of the things that's harder to do at home is to actually calibrate the sensory stimulus that is used in order to determine what would be an appropriate setting for it, or to be having it introduced by an actual program that's monitoring your sleep. So there are certain things that are working on this. I'll just tell you how it's done in sleep labs right now. It's done either by they have some programs now that are trying to do this, but it's done by professional polysomnography monitoring. So EEG, that's electroencephalography, electrooculography, and electromyography. So that is measuring brainwave activities through electrical currents, eye movement, and muscle tone. Those are the things that are measured for sleep generally, particularly for dream studies. The protocol that is used is called targeted lucidity reactivation, or TLR. And basically what this is someone is trained to a particular sensory cue or to a group of them. They are trained with an intention to notice that if they observe that again, to notice that they are dreaming. And so it's a specific process where they're trained to it. And these cues are also calibrated to a minimum intensity, so the minimum setting at which a person can notice it. And then when they're introduced, they're like slowly ramped up as those cues are introduced when the person is in REM sleep. And their sleep is monitored. If they're noticing that the person might be about to wake up, they stop it. And there's different ways that they do this. But this is done under lab monitoring. There are devices nowadays that are attempting to do this with sleep monitoring. The technology is a little bit behind right now, but there are technologies that are slowly improving. And something like this will become more available in the future, but there does still need to be some work on it. The final note on incorporation, even for those who succeed with incorporation, because I've actually tested this on myself just with my phone and falling asleep to music, is that, and this is one of the main downfalls with Rosses as well, like one of the main pitfalls rather with Rosses, is the more exposure you have to a stimulus like this, the more likely you are to ignore it. And so if you're trying to do something like this consistently, it loses effectiveness over time. And so that's the final note there. And so that's basically incorporation in a nutshell. That's how all this stuff kind of works.
Achievements sounds good. Okay, as for the sixth segment that we had planned, we're already over time. So what do you guys think of like incorporating it into the next session instead? Because the next session goes around all of these ideas. However, we thought that we might add it onto this session, seeing as like people would be interested.
Because we still have our Q&A and we usually do that for an hour. I think the segment 6 can literally be done in 3 minutes.
Okay. Who wants to do segment 6?
I talk the fastest.
Okay.
All right, so you
Go on.
compare techniques, day techniques and night techniques. It doesn't matter which ones. You can pair them together. Any technique that doesn't conflict with each other. Like the only pairings I wouldn't do are like in the immediate, like you wake up and then you're doing mild and wild at the same time, or trying to do something like that. But if you did, for example, multiple awakenings, you could do mild or wild, or mild and then SSLD, for example, or you could do mild before bed and then you could do an awakening with SSLD. You can mix and match them. In that sense, I just wouldn't recommend like constantly changing them up. But day and night techniques can easily be paired with one another because they don't conflict at all. As I would say, like, auto suggestion thing, like Flow's combined thing. I'm not a big fan of auto suggestion personally, but I think that's part of like the whole combined thing, like his day and night practice. I personally prefer mild over doing that myself. It's part of what I'd recommend. But the final note is consistency. So when you develop a routine, so whatever techniques you're doing, or you're pairing together, or you're whatever you do, you develop a routine for lucid dreaming. Practice that routine consistently for at least a month before you switch techniques. Consistent practice is important because this is skill training, and so the more you're constantly switching up with things, the less experience you get with each method and the less chance you're giving each to work. And so practicing with the routine consistently for at least a month is recommended before switching techniques. See, under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay. I think that's the end of our presentation.
Yep.
Now we have the Q&A for approximately like 53 minutes. If anyone wants to, you can now request to speak. That's pretty. If you want to ask a question, anyone can request to speak. You can ask
I'm gonna
questions
take a
on
small
any topic.
dinner break.
You can have a small dinner break. It's okay. I mean, we got this.
Just gonna grab a sandwich or two.
Okay. So if you want to stay for the Q&A, you're welcome to do so. If you want to leave now, thank you so much for coming. We will definitely be uploading the recording, which I believe someone is recording. Yay. Okay. Do we start inviting people to speak?
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, welcome.
Hi. So that was a lot. I'm definitely going to listen back to everything, but I want to try and be as quick as I can here because a lot of people are going to have questions. But I wanted to try something and ask in a dream that I can recount to you, how would each of you become lucid in the dream that I list? Is that all right to try?
What do you want? Do you want us like to help you find dream signs, or
Like, if you were in my dream instead of me, what would you have done to go lucid?
well, it's more like what you train yourself to do. Like I could help you. I could show you like what dream signs you could look for, or ways you could train yourself with like mild or something like that. Because like what you do to go lucid, oftentimes it's a very subconscious thing. Like because you've trained yourself to do certain things, and so you're noticing things out of place. You're noticing you're becoming more aware, and then you notice that you're dreaming. And so there's a lot of subconscious component to it there. So it's not just like you place someone else in your dream. What would they do to become lucid? I can help you see the dream signs in it though. Like we could show you all the dream signs you have.
Yeah, I have 3 dreams that I wrote down, and the first one is the most important one because it's the one I remember the most.
Okay.
But here goes. So in my dream, I'm inside a steel tower with like a spiral staircase, and the walls are made of steel bricks. There are alcoves with torches, and I'm climbing up the steps, and it's clanging a little bit as I climb. It's kind of cold, but it's also sort of a warm summer night, I guess. And I come out the top. There's no doorway. I'm going up the stairs, and then all of a sudden it snaps to me being on this very flat rooftop with a little square building off to my right. And there's a man whose face I can't see. He's kind of in a long flowing robe sort of thing. And he asks me to find my star. And I ask him what he means. And he says, look up. And I look up to the right, and the sky is completely black, full of stars. And he says, do you see it? And I go, no. And he goes, well, try again, but look at your arm first. And I go, okay. I look down at my arm, and I've got like a mobile computer gauntlet style thingy attached to my arm with maybe 3 computer screens and a keyboard and some other controls. I look at one of the screens, and there is a shooting star on the screen that is moving down and to the left, kind of teardrop shape. And I realize, oh, that's my star. And I look up at him, at the guy, and I still can't see his face. It's in shadow, but I can see his hair, kind of. He's got like long white hair. Um, and then I look down at my screen again, and the star's gone. And he says, now you have it. And I go, okay. And I realize kind of belatedly that there's a light coming from my right hand's palm, and it's a ring of light on the ground, like a flashlight. And he instructs me that now I have to use that. And what I use it for is that across a black river to my left, that is completely both black and see-through at the same time. There's no light reflections on it at all. There's a plinth that I can stand on. And as I walk over to it, he tells me, you have a choice. You can either, first you have to learn to strengthen your light, which I do. It takes a couple seconds, and I can now project the light very far into the distance, and I can see the shadow of a city with a Ferris wheel and some other stuff in the background. And he says, everyone over there can't see, and they need light. And for them to have light, you need to be their light. And I go, okay. So he says, stand on the plinth, and I'm able to illuminate what's in the river using the light coming out of my hand. And there's cars, bicycles, just kind of machines and junk. And I can see the water flowing, and there's some fish as well. And there's a little bridge from where I am to the city, and I'm slightly to the side of the bridge.
Yes,
Can I
Crystal.
The
just
dream's
quickly
almost
interrupt you to
over.
say,
The dream's
well,
almost
It's
over.
taking a while.
I
okay.
I shine the light across the city, and
Right.
I become a statue, and I can't do anything for the rest of my life. So
Okay. All right.
yeah,
All right. Well, I would say just say this because there are a lot of other people to ask questions, so that was taking a lot of time. Just look for
sorry.
dream. All right. There's every single thing in that is a dream sign. You should have no trouble finding dream signs in that.
Okay.
Practically every single thing there, because what about that experience is normal to your life? What about that is likely to happen when you're awake?
Makes sense, yeah.
None of it. All right, and the time skips, like the gaps where you just found yourself place, your arm being different. Every single thing about that dream is a dream sign. Probably at least 10 different dream signs in there. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Mild is awesome with dream signs. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Okay. Remember, anyone can request to speak. Anyone at all. We are now going to get someone new.
Okay, here my problem with my dreams. Problem of me getting sad is the fact that every time I'm not in my own dreams, it's like I'm watching the show. I'm just literally not here. Like I'm just not there. Like when you watch the series show, are you kind of like aware about what you're doing yourself.
So you're saying you're in third
But-
person?
Yes, I'm almost always third person.
That is a
First person
huge dream
is so
sign.
fun.
Do you know how big of a dream sign that is?
Yeah, but there's a problem. Because of this third person, I'm not aware of myself.
It's a huge dream sign though. So like at any time you see yourself in third person, you're dreaming.
No, I don't see yourself. I'm just not there.
Anytime you're not there, you're dreaming.
Yeah, imagine if seriously, when I'm watching the dreams, I'm just like watching the show. I just literally not there. I don't see myself at all. I'm just it's like I'm watching like some kind of cartoon or something.
So you're passive. You're a passive observer.
I'm always passive.
Yeah, you're a passive observer. You're not there, like you're not actively engaged in it. So
Yep,
if
I'm
you're
just
not
passive
actively,
observer.
so look at that dream, right? So you consider like what would you do if you were engaged in it? Like those are great dreams to mild with, in my opinion, because you can look at that dream, go, okay, well, any dream that you have like this, it's a huge recurring dream sign for starters. Anytime that you're watching stuff like that and you're just not engaged in it, it's a dream sign because that's how all your dreams are. It's a
Yeah,
high chance of happening in your dreams. And you can train yourself to think about, okay, well, what if I was engaged in this? What would I do? And
yeah.
remember, it's the the controlling aspect. It's all about how you perceive it.
Like here's a I even remember one time when I was actually got awareness. I remember just seeing in my hands in front of me, and just I'm that passive in my dreams. I don't even see my hands or anything. It's just like I'm watching the show.
You can change. You can change that. Your dreams are not static. You can actually change that.
Yeah, yeah. But the problem is how to first I get awareness of my existence in my dreams.
Exactly. So daytime awareness and mild, really, honestly, is perfect for this,
But
because any time
yeah,
that you're
but
not any time that you yourself are just watching this kind of thing happen and aren't actively involved, you're dreaming.
yeah. What about when we problem is what about when I'm just for example just watching the videos in real life? What about those cases?
Well, you're holding your phone, aren't you?
So imagine them looking at the thing on my
Okay.
phone and
So
then
are you on your phone or your computer right now?
on my phone.
Okay. So I assume it's either laying on the table in front of you or you're holding it in your hand. Are you holding it or is it laying in front of you?
It's laying in front of me on my leg.
Okay. So it's laying on your leg. So can you feel the weight of it on your leg?
Yeah, a bit.
You can feel your leg.
Normal.
So daytime awareness could help with that. So for example, like when you're watching videos on your phone, feel the weight of your phone on your body or the weight of it in your hand if you're holding it. Feel whatever else you're experiencing with the other parts of your body. Like for example, my arms resting on their chairs, my fingers on the keyboard, my feet on the wall or on the floor in front of me as they're resting against different things, my legs against the desk that I have. I mean, there's all these tactile and visual sensations that you could be aware of looking around the room in front of you. The issue here might be one of sort of just mindlessness during daily life. Like if you're just going through your life and just not paying much attention, and daytime awareness can really help with that. If you're aware during the day of what you're experiencing, if you're critically thinking and you're present throughout the day, just like right now as I'm talking, you can just be aware of what you're experiencing and you can incorporate that into your practice and you would probably find yourself being more aware and active in your dreams as a result of it.
Okay. Also, I have a habit of daydreaming.
Mm-hmm. And are you aware of that when you do it?
Sometimes. Sometimes I just lost on thought and then I realize that I'm running across the room.
Yeah, because what it sounds like to me is mindfulness would really help you here. It sounds like you're going through daily life almost on autopilot and not really thinking too much about it. Like right now, I'm talking to you, and I'm aware of the sound of my own voice and what I sound like and everything
Yeah,
that
kind
I'm
of.
listening to. And so I think there's just so many opportunities that you could be aware in your daily life and less mindless and more mindful of what you're experiencing. And I
Yeah.
think that has a lot to do with what you're talking about. Like if you're not aware and actively present in your waking life, then it's no surprise that transfers into your dreams.
Yeah, I kind of do, mostly because my real life is so fucking boring. Every single day, everything the same, everything the same. Sorry.
Yeah, I know how that feels. It does kind of suck sometimes, but um, going through it in kind of a fog doesn't really help us either.
But what can help me? I just sorry being so asking such personal questions, but I actually love to hear something that can actually help me with this. Like, yeah, I'm aware of everything, but it just makes me more aware how bad everything is.
Yeah, well, I will say this, like dreams won't fix your waking life. Ultimately, each of us is responsible for, what we can do to help ourselves in that respect. But being aware in your waking life definitely will help you be more aware in your dreams. So when you're asking, well, how do I become more aware in my dreams? Being more aware in your waking life helps with being more aware in your dreams.
Yeah, like, yeah, you're right. Like, oh, listen, I started to practice lucid dream to make my life less boring.
hmm Well, if you are able to become more aware in your dreams and you're practicing night techniques and you're practicing daytime awareness, then you can definitely achieve that. I mean, think about what you can do as a result. I mean, your motivation should be like, what is your why? Why are you doing this? So you want to make your life less boring. Well, think about all the cool things you can do. In order to do all those cool things, you need to be more aware of your dreams and less passive. In order to be less passive, you need to be more aware in your waking life. And so there's bleed over
Yeah.
effects.
So it is kind of, so wait, so the fact that I'm just like watching a TV show is a reflection of like my own mental state.
Just as long as the TV show doesn't become Jerry Springer, I think you'll be okay.
You know, just forget it means anything. It's if anything, it's more like every time it's just some kind of cartoon. Seriously, the
Yeah.
game has an art style.
But
Sometimes,
yeah, but
depending on
just
styles.
just think about it. And life sometimes is tough. Like I'm dealing with a lot of crap going on in my life right now, but hiding from it isn't helping me deal with it either. So like I've got a lot of stuff coming up this week. This week is a really stressful week for me. And so I have a lot going on right now and it's not fun, but I got to do it anyway. And it's just it's the kind of stuff we have to do sometimes.
Can I send you virtual hugs?
What?
Sorry.
Virtual hugs.
Yeah.
Well, you always have support here if you have any questions. You're definitely welcome.
Yeah.
hmm
Thank you for help. I was accommodated. Thank you.
You're okay. Have a good day. Have a good night.
Yay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Um,
I am
who we
back
got
from the
next?
dinner break.
Hi, Beck. Nice to meet you.
Oh, hey, Skyfall,
Hi,
I'm
hi
Hey,
back
back.
Leah.
from the dinner break.
Yeah. All right. Next
I am the
person.
backest.
hmm
Sometimes I can just like write down my dream journal and like I can remember everything, but like other days like I just can't at all. It's like alternating.
Do you do anything in addition to journaling for recall?
I just like not really much.
So, do you review your dream journal before bed? Do you set intentions before bed to remember dreams when you wake up? Do you dream delve when you wake up?
I don't know what dream delving is.
Well, you will find some amazing stuff in our resources channel that discusses this. Also, if you look back at the last one we did, actually, at the number 2 on Dream Cafe Guides YouTube channel, you will actually see us discuss dream recall in depth. I think that first hour could be very helpful for you. But I'll just go through dream delving really quickly here. Basically, what you do is when you wake up, you stay in that position you woke up in, because the position you're in is actually associated with what you were dreaming about. And association is how we access memories. And so immediately think about what you were just experiencing. What was I thinking about? What was I hearing? What was I seeing? What was I touching? What emotions was I just experiencing? What was I dreaming about? What different things were happening? And if you can get any dream scenes, you think your way backwards. You start at the end and you work your way back to the beginning. What was I doing before that? What was I doing before that? What was I doing before that? And once you've gotten as much as you can, then you journal it. The goal here is to think about your dreams, the more you think about it, the easier they are to remember. Because one of the issues with dream memory is memory encoding. Typically, like actually transferring those memories to long-term memory and making it so you can access them. And so dream delving does help with that. Also, if you sleep in multiple positions, you can do it in multiple positions. But it's one of those things that's a very active component to recall. It's a very active thing you can do to help you remember your dreams. And it's something I definitely recommend doing. And like I said, if you want to learn more, you can see our resources channel and you can see the dream, the number 2 thing we did on YouTube. You can see it there too.
I don't really have like any other senses other than the vision. Like,
oh yes, you do. You're just not remembering them.
Yeah, I just don't really remember them.
Do you pay attention to more than your vision in waking life?
Well, yeah.
How often? Like, how often do you think about what you are touching, for example, what you are hearing?
Well, hearing like really all the time.
Yeah, because a lot of what we experience in dreams is based off of what we pay attention to and think about in waking life. So, if for example, for a lot of people, if sight is seen as like the most important thing and that's what you're focused on, then that's what you focus on in dreams. As a blind person, sight really isn't a factor for me in dreams, like very vaguely, not very much. And so you do have those senses, you're just not remembering them. And so that is a dream recall thing. That is something you can actually work on through dream recall and through paying more attention while awake to all of your senses.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Here we go next. Okay, I will call in someone random.
Yep.
Oh, Jim.
Hello.
Hello.
Soren the Nameless. I know I'm not sure who you named after, but you might think of
Just
Sauron.
random thoughts. So I've been meaning to ask about LeBurge's target practice and the correlation between SAT and that in more detail, because I've
Okay.
found that like his target practice is really similar to SAT, and I don't really understand if there's any difference
Oh,
to
there is.
do reality checks with targets and just spontaneously.
Well, the difference is in what you're training yourself to do. So for his target practice, which are his perspective memory exercises, the purpose of that is to train yourself in intention setting. And so you're deciding to do something in the future. If you heard me talk about intentions before, you're deciding you're going to do something in the future, and then you're doing that thing at the right time. And so when you're noticing those targets, you've decided, you're setting an intention, you've decided you're going to notice those targets. And so it's not about the reality check in that as it is about, or the state test rather, it's not about the reality test or the state test in that as much as about noticing the target, because that's training your perspective memory. Sporadic awareness technique, on the other hand, is more about the awareness itself. It's about being critically thinking, presently aware in the present moment, critically aware.
So
Being aware and critically
general
thinking.
skill.
You can actually combine the two. You can combine the targets with sporadic awareness
Really?
technique. They are not mutually exclusive, but they do serve different ends. And so you can actually train both at the same time. I would personally recommend that. Probably combine the two things together, and then you're training your perspective memory and you're training your critical awareness at the same time. They are not mutually exclusive, but they do serve different ends.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Here we go next. Lorian, welcome. Welcome to the
Hello.
stage.
Well,
Welcome.
I've just been meaning to ask, in what methods can you get better at noticing dream signs?
Mild. um, some daytime awareness stuff, if you do it specifically related to dream signs, mild is really good about it because you're part of it. Like if you do it like the way I do, and like if you look at like Dr. Lamarcus guides, you can train yourself as you're doing mild to like notice these things, to notice the dream signs, and train yourself like when you're setting that intention to notice that you're dreaming, you do it and you revolve it around dream signs. The other thing that works well with dream signs is going back to your dream journal. Like the more you pay attention to your dreams, you can find things that are out of place. Make a game of it. Make a game of how many dream signs can I find in this dream, and like go through it and find everything out of place in it. You can make a game out of it. It's actually pretty fun.
All right, thank you. That's all I really wanted to know.
Cheers.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put-
There we go. Okay, who we got next?
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Good afternoon.
So I tend to have dreams in which I know I am dreaming, sort of, but it's almost so obvious that I glance over it and then don't actually get aware enough to do the things that I had planned to do,
Mhm.
and sort of like keep role playing for the dream plot. And I tend to call it half lucids, but I was wondering if there's a name for something like this, and if I can do anything about it, so to like use that partial awareness for my advantage and actually properly get lucid.
They are lucid dreams for starters, right? You know that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. That's a lucid dream. There are different levels of awareness in lucid dreams, from being aware that you're dreaming at the very low end. It's like a dimmer switch. It flicks on, you know that you're dreaming, and then you can brighten it all the way up to the point where you have waking memory access. You're aware that everything you're experiencing, including yourself, is part of the dream. Like those the high end of awareness. So what you're describing is probably on the lower to low moderate end. You're aware that you're dreaming, so you are lucid. These are lucid dreams, but you're not remembering what you wanted to do when you got lucid. And so you can set intentions to remember to do the things you want to do while lucid. Again, Mild is good at this. Um, so if there's specific goals you can have, you could think about those goals. You can think about how you would do them in dreams. You can set intentions to remember to do them. Um, Again, like I've said earlier, daytime awareness definitely helps with dream awareness, and so you could add daytime awareness to this. So there's different things you can do. You are getting lucid, okay? So you are actually getting lucid. You're just probably lower awareness, and you're not remembering the things you want to do, which is a little different. It's similar. It's part of the awareness. It's a part of the memory side of it, really, though. So there are some things you can do with that respect.
Mm-hmm. But I tend to set intentions before I sleep to do anything that involves dreams, whether it's dream delving or like just
Mm-hmm.
getting lucid. So there is intention, and they are lucids. I agree on
Yeah.
that.
So like,
Uh,
what practices are what techniques do you do for lucid dreaming in particular?
I used to do SSILD, but I stopped because I couldn't get Wake Back to Bed to work, and I sort of gave up on text for now, and I'm only doing uh, like I'm not putting effort into lucid dreaming, but I'm sort of
Mm-hmm.
doing it as a bonus next to sleeping or something like that.
Well, I
So
do.
so before I sleep, I just sort my thoughts out and then go like, I don't have anything specific to talk to think about, so let's set intention for lucid dreaming and hope it works.
Well, that
And then
that
so
could.
sometimes I think it's sometimes it works, sometimes it works in a way that I just described, and sometimes I don't get lucid, but I remember to dream delve, so I
Okay.
still can at least remember the dream.
So honestly, I'd recommend. Have you ever done mild before?
I think I tried, but I never really got into it
Like, did you ever do it
deeply.
consistently? Because that could be something that could help you. Like, cause you're actually going through that, a previous dream, and you're actually putting yourself there and imagining like how you would do it, like how you would carry out these intentions that you have. That could help you there. I would be interested to know, did you ever try the natural awakenings route, or did you only ever try to do alarms? Um, because there is a difference there.
I I always used alarms for wake back to bed when I intended it, but I noticed that I also have natural awakenings, but I
Oh,
also tend to be too sleepy to really care and
yeah.
do a technique. And
Those, yeah.
another problem with wake back to bed is that when I uh, wake up, whether it's planned or not, I fall asleep again very easily. So even if I get up and do some things for 5 minutes, I'm still pretty sleepy. And
That's actually
back when I
useful.
back
That's
when I was
useful.
still back when I still was doing SSILD, it was a problem because I could only get to warm up cycles,
Yeah.
get over them, and
But
I couldn't do the
okay, 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 okay,
proper
okay,
cycles.
okay, okay, okay. But you can do mild sitting up. And so you could
Yeah.
actually, so when you notice these awakenings, you could use intentions to, okay, well, I'm going to do the technique. You can sit up or stand up. Honestly, you can sit up, do mild, and then just lay back down and you're back asleep. Perfect. Perfect. Like you can fall asleep quickly. That's an asset, man. That's a really nice asset. I like that asset. I do not fall asleep quickly, and so being able to wake up, do like, and then SILD, typically you're laying down, but you can do mild sitting up without having to lay down, and then once you're finished with it, you just lay down and go back to bed.
Yeah,
And
that could work. And about mild, what do I actually think about? What dream
so,
specifically?
so for
How do I
example,
choose?
pick a recent dream that you can remember well. So that's a good combination. So here's an example. Say if there's a dream from last night that you remember really well, use it. If you don't remember very many dreams, you don't remember much detail from a dream last night, but there's a dream from 2 or 3 days ago that you remember really well, use that dream. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you go through that dream, just like you heard me describe mild earlier, right?
No.
Go through the dream, imagine, go through the dream beginning to end, find dream signs in it, so anything out of place. Imagine getting lucid, so imagine yourself any point in the dream getting lucid. You do what's called rescripting it, where you imagine getting lucid, and then what are those things you want to do? Oh, your dream goals, the intentions things you want to do in your dreams. You imagine doing those, and then you repeat that
Oh,
imagined dream, and you
so
repeat that until you feel like you set your intention, and then you remind yourself to notice that you're dreaming while you're dreaming, and you go to bed.
so I take a dream that I had, and then while imagining that dream and myself in that dream, I spot different dream signs that I can find, and
Yep.
when I find a certain one, or just one,
Mhm.
I imagine myself getting lucid, and then the dream kind of changes into a copy, a new one, where I actually branch off into lucid dreaming and doing dream goals.
Yeah, and then do what you want. So basically, first you go through the whole dream beginning to end, and then you like pick a point in the dream where you want to change it, and imagine yourself being lucid in it and getting lucid in it, or and then filling those dream goals. Here's another trick with mild. You don't just have to do mild with non-lucid dreams. You can do it with lucid dreams too. So you know those dreams you're talking about where you're getting lucid but you're not remembering your dream goals. All right,
Yeah.
take one of those and go through it, and then imagine yourself getting lucid in it, and imagine yourself doing those dream goals and rehearsing that and repeating that dream, and imagine what it'd be like for you in that dream to have done those dream goals, and you can remind yourself of that intention and go to bed. It's actually intuitive. You can use lucid dreams with it as well. You don't have to just use non-lucids for it.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that could help you a lot.
Okay, I'll definitely try that.
Awesome. Cheers.
I think that's all. Thank you so
Awesome.
much. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye. And Crystal is muted once more. So the question remains, who is here to see who's going to be coming up on stage? Because
Next person.
okay. She's unmuted.
I did.
Wow. She lives. Dipster, hello.
Hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mariana.
Welcome. Hello?
I think it's
No, so I'm just wondering. So you know how Explorers to Dreaming made a video a while back on lucid dreaming pills? I was just wondering if y'all have ever like tried that and had any results.
I will say I haven't, and for the most part, that's not a shortcut to lucid dreaming. That's an enhancement. It doesn't replace consistent practice and skill training. So I just make that note. And then I think Crystal and Liam might have something to say, possibly because I've been talking this whole time. So, Let's see what they
Don't
have
do
to say.
drugs, kids.
Yeah, just don't do it. Like it's pretty irresponsible to attempt to do stuff like that, in my opinion. I think like just go for normal techniques such as like mild, which is free and it
They don't
doesn't
cost
cost money.
Yeah.
Yeah, your wallet will
so
suffer if you
I see.
do
It-
pills.
so
Although,
and
yeah.
like lucid dreaming supplements, they don't teach you like they don't teach you any fundamentals. They don't teach you anything.
No.
They don't really give you experience. That's just sort of something
Mm.
that you can take, which probably won't even help in the first place. I don't know. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, one more thing. So like I had a I came really close to lucid dream like the other night, but I did a reality check and like it failed on me. Like
Mhm.
usually my reality check is I count 5 fingers, and if I count like 6 or more,
Only
then like
works off dream control.
what was that?
It only works off dream control. That's one of those state tests that only works through dream control, and so it doesn't surprise me that it failed on you.
What do y'all usually use?
I don't. I haven't used state tests outside of being anxious in a false awakening in over 2 years.
So you just like know you're in a dream?
Exactly. That's actually the goal. The goal isn't to be dependent on state tests. The state tests are a
Oh, okay.
confirmation measure. They're like training wheels for a beginner. The goal isn't to be reliant on them. The goal is to get to a point where you can be confident you're in lucidity and be aware without needing that confirmation measure.
I guess I haven't gotten to that. That's pretty neat.
I got to that on my 10th lucid dream over 3 years ago.
Oh wow.
The first time. Also, if you just the last thing, if you're really, really, really like eager, and you have to spend money on lucid dreaming, you can always pay us.
Yeah, I do courses every day. Yeah, like literally, I'd be there for
Yeah,
you
but all these
24/7.
Much like started.
Oh, yep. Gotta have fun every now and then, don't we? All right.
Yeah,
Thank you
pay
very much,
us.
Dipster. I hope you have a good day.
Answers. You looking for this next week?
Have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Mhm. I love
Yeah.
having fun.
Sure. Thank you so much. Okay. Does anyone else want to ask a question or anything? Feel free to raise your hand. MP, this is the perfect time to voice reveal.
Real.
Mhm.
If nobody has questions, I have a cool story to share. So basically, I just had well, I didn't just have it, but I had one like a few months ago, where I did like 5 different like state tests, and they all failed. It was really funny.
Dude,
It is-
I had one a few months ago too, where I was, for some reason, I was determined to put my finger through my palm to see if it was even possible. Well, to see if I could like do it, and I tried so hard and I couldn't. Like it wouldn't go through, because why would it go through?
It is dream control, so like you could make it happen.
Look, my dream control failed, but like this just goes to prove that physical state tests, no.
For the most part.
MP.
There are only 2 exceptions, but to that rule. But for the most part, yeah.
MP's typing. If they want to talk, please talk.
We
We're
love talking.
waiting. Please,
Faker.
please,
Please.
Pressure, peer pressure. I swear. The peer pressure is insane.
Okay. "20 minutes post session, VC, please.
Unlucky Panda still has a request.
Yeah.
They were just here.
Okay, let's invite them to sit. I was just waiting for MP.
I wanted to
Hello,
just
welcome back.
ask, hello, because I just got some questions, new questions. The questions are: can I use multiple dreams for mild, and is it a good idea?
Yeah,
So
you can.
I will say for mild, like because I have done that before, but just as a general rule, I think it's probably good to stick with one for each time you do it. Like say you do it before you go to bed, use one dream for those repetitions. And then if you wake up for wake back to bed, or you do it again, you could use another dream, or you do it the next day, you use a different dream. But I generally, even though I've done multiple dreams before in one night, I think it does work best to reinforce that intention if you probably just stick with the same dream and use it.
I see. And what's the ideal time I should spend on it?
Either until A, you feel like you've set your intention, like you're confident that you've set your intention. B, 15 to 20 minutes, or C, whichever comes first.
Okay,
Yes. Okay,
so
we're back
that's
to you.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Good night.
Have a good night. Okay, okay, someone else wants to speak. Welcome.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Greetings. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I have just one question I
All right.
want to ask. Can you practice a skill in a lucid dream? Like to
Repetitive,
learn a new language or something like that?
repetitive skills. Yes. Something you already know how to do. Like, say, for
Um,
example, because we use the same neural pathways while asleep as awake. So, say you're practicing like a musical instrument or a sport or
yeah.
something like that, and there's like specific movements that you know how to do in your training, you can reinforce things you already know and practice that in a dream. There is evidence to actually just to support that with athletes in particular. It gets a little bit different if what you're trying to do involves access to information you don't have. This comes
Mm,
up when people talk about studying, for example, in lucid dream. Um, if there's something that works best or requires access to external information, that is like the one limitation of dreams is accessing external information. And so, one of the issues with that is like it is very easy to create false memories in dreams. And so, you can think that you've done something like perfectly correct, and then you wake up and go, oh crap, I actually thought that was true. And so I'd say languages can be complex. Like language falls into both categories. If you already know the language and you just want to practice like your pronunciation and you already know how it works, but you're just stumbling over it, then you can definitely do that. You can improve your pronunciation if you know how it's supposed to sound. If you're trying to learn new words and you don't have access to the book or to the software to wherever you're learning, you're probably going to have trouble because you don't have the outside information.
but what if you, let's say, run in a lucid dream or a
Yeah, that
marathon or
doesn't
something?
require outside information. So yeah, that's practicing something you already know how to do.
And it help you in the real world?
It can. What it won't do is, like, for example, say in weight endurance training, for example,
Yeah.
you can't train yourself to do something that you're physically incapable of doing. So if you don't have built up muscle tone, you're not gonna turn yourself into a big time bodybuilder in a lucid dream if you don't
Yeah.
have the waking skills to complement it. But what you can do is improve technique.
Oh, yeah.
If and complement what you're already practicing. So it's not a replacement for waking life practice. It's a supplement. It's an assistance to waking life practice. It can help you refine your skill, but it's not a replacement to practicing while awake.
But your central nervous system won't be affected?
Huh?
Your central nervous
Like
system, like, mm, oh, how to
it's
say,
it would be it's to be the mental side of it. You're training yourself repetitively to do something. Like swimming, for example, you can train swimming technique or running technique or martial arts. Anything like that, you can train and refine. The one thing you can't do is basically strengthen your own muscles and stuff. Like that requires actual usage of those muscles. So that's like the main thing you can't do with physical skills.
but this will not affect your sleep or something.
No, not at all.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much. I just
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't seem we have anyone else requesting. People feel free to request. Yeah. Okay, we have a request. Let's go.
Alright, so
Welcome.
hello. I have a question.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Lucid. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. So is it true that going like in lucid dreaming, like while you're lucid dreaming, if you revisit like an old memory, it can like affect it, like you like when you go back into the waking world, like you'll like forget it or like something like that.
It would take a lot of messing up things to wreck memories like that. Memory is malleable in dreams, and you can create false memories, but as long as you have a good handle on what's a dream and what isn't, and so you know that you're in a dream and you know that you're having this experience in a dream and you wake up and you remember the dream and you have the context, you're fine as long as you can maintain and know that that's a dream. I think it would become an issue if you forget that you were dreaming, like say you forgot the dream and then you had the memory there but it wasn't associated properly with the dream that it was in, and then you confused it with a waking memory. But as long as you know that it's a dream and you wake up, you have that dream recorded, and you knew that you were dreaming, you had that separation there, you'll be fine. um it's Let's just say actually screwing up your actual memories is not something any of us here are likely to end up doing, even if I don't think any of us here is crazy enough to actually want to do that in the first place, like to actually screw up with real memories like that. That's kind of like this kind of thing that's just not something that people are generally going to try to do.
All right. And I have one more question. So
Okay.
last lesson we talked about like natural awakenings, and I didn't really understand it too well. Could you like explain it a little better?
Absolutely. So we already so for example, we wake up every night, multiple times every night. So what usually happens is these are called micro awakenings or micro arousals. And so we're up for a very short period of time. We're awake and we fall back asleep. And just like with so many people forgetting their dreams, we forget these awakenings ever happened. And so it leads to this illusion of uninterrupted sleep where we don't think we woke up at all. Well, in fact, we probably woke up 5 times, 6 times, or more, and we just didn't even notice. And so, what you're training yourself to do here is actually through intention. You're not training yourself to wake up because you already do that. You're training yourself to notice when you wake up because then you can take advantage. And so, your intentions, you're setting an intention, you're making that decision to notice when you wake up during the night. And then, when you do notice it, because intentions are awesome, then you have an opportunity to perform techniques to do a wake back to bed, to do like mild to wild SLD, something of that nature. And now you have this opportunity before you that you can use. And it's much better than using an alarm because you're not startled awake. So it's much easier to fall back asleep for the vast majority of people, easier to remember dreams as well. And so it's all in all less disruptive than waking up with an alarm.
Okay. And I got one more question.
Sure.
So what is this called? So whenever I'm lucid dreaming, one time I was like basically awake, like I could see like the outside world while being in a dream. It's kind of hard to explain, but like
Where
I
I
was
guess your
seeing
eyes
both.
were open, maybe?
Yeah, and I was like half awake, half asleep, and I
But
was just dreaming.
you were walking around in the dream and doing stuff in the dream, but you had your eyes open, you saw your room.
Yeah.
I think that could be something related to that incorporation I talked about earlier. I don't know if you're here for that, but when I talked about incorporating external sensory stimuli. And so it could have been you were dreaming and your eyes happened to open, which is not something that typically happens, I think, for most of us. Our eyes stay closed. And so your eyes would have been open and you saw your room, but you were dreaming and the visual sense of your room incorporated into your dream because, well, your eyes were open. And so you had this incorporation of this visual sense from your waking life, in your dream while you're still experiencing your dream before you wake up, which I would say is kind of creepy, but also cool at the same time. So, do with that what you will. But um, I've heard similar reports of people like being able to see their waking room in one eye and a dream in another. It's like never happened to me. Obviously, I'm not a very visual person to begin with, but I've never really had that happen to me. Though I do incorporate audio frequently enough, in particular if I sleep with my dad's TV's on. So I do have that happen from time to time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had that happen to me, and I think it was just like the dream, like doing weird.
That's another thing. Your dream can just do weird crap too. So that is always an option.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
shopping at Dream Cafe.
Yes. You
Okay.
gotta give a good review on Yelp, please.
Yep.
Totally.
Ah, let's
Okay,
go
okay.
to
I also want to add one other thing.
welcome back, Flower.
Welcome back.
Yeah, how weird thing that when sometimes when I try to fall asleep, if I, for example, like try to lay, just try to fall asleep while being aware of what's happening, my eyes start to open themselves. And sometimes it's just a bit annoying when I'm like trying to sleep and my eyes just open and I'm watching on my empty room, even though I really want to sleep.
Does this happen to you often? Like a lot of times you're falling asleep?
And I try to use some techniques.
Oh, so you're trying to do like wild?
Yeah.
So it
Like
sounded
when I
like.
like try to lay and move, my eyes start to open.
Yeah. By the way, do you know with wild that you can actually move, right?
Yeah, I know. It just still, if I concentrate on it, and just like, if I don't turn my brain off, I just start to like open my eyes.
Yeah, because you can move with wild, like trying to force it. If you don't normally fall asleep by laying still completely, trying to force yourself to do that is actually counterproductive. I covered that a little earlier. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard other people say that before. It's definitely I think it's more of a minority thing. Like not many people experience that like overall. So it's like a smaller group of percentage of people that like actually experience that. But I guess like if your eyes are opening, I mean, usually when we're ready to fall asleep, our eyes, are the pressure is to have them closed versus when we're awake is to have them open. So maybe you're not quite to the point where you're ready to fall asleep just yet. Or maybe you're doing something that is keeping you awake or something along those lines.
Yeah, I
Just
probably
try to be
should move.
relaxed. Try not to force things one way or the other. Try to be more relaxed.
Got it. So as always, just music in background to help me fall asleep and just. So weirdly enough, when I do SSL, I just immediately just fall asleep. It's just like I get straight, like you know, as if all concentrate on your eyes and on the sounds and the body, and then I'm like just poof.
Oh, nice. Maybe do that as a wild anchor, or just do that. But yeah, if you're trying to force yourself to do things that you wouldn't normally do when falling asleep, that can like in particular like anything related to your sleeping position or things of that nature, you could cause yourself issues falling asleep by like disrupting that process too much.
So I just need to lay the most comfortable way for me.
Yep.
I like listen to things that I like, and then when I go to sleep, got like, oh wait, why I'm watching this show? I never seen it before, and then
Yeah.
like,
The only difference between doing wild and falling asleep normally would be paying attention to something as you fall asleep. That should be the only difference.
okay, so background music as always. Listen, I just really like it having background music when I fall asleep, so I can use it as a wild anchor anyway.
Do you normally have background music on when you fall asleep? Like normally?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, just use that as the as a wild anchor then. And just be passive. Don't try to pay too much attention to it because you could fall into the trap of paying too much attention and keep yourself awake that way.
My
So it should be
background
more like
music is how to
observing.
call it that type of music, like ambulance, like you know, like those like calm music that like
Yeah, like
I don't know.
yeah.
Is ambulance the right word?
Ambience?
Ambience, yes,
Yes,
ambience.
that is correct.
I use yes, says Crystal.
I just like to say that there are 2 other people with questions and we have
Sorry.
2 minutes left, sort of.
Okay, see ya.
Okay. Have a good day.
Okay, but thank you so much. Okay, to be fair, these are recurring members as a. Oh wait, no, that. Okay, whatever. Welcome back.
Oh,
I
he's
suppose.
back.
If you could make this quick, then we'll be able to fit more people in.
Okay. I just have one question. Do those lucid dreaming masks actually work, like where they turn on like lights at like a certain time?
sometimes for some people, but the technology needs improvement in a lot of ways. So it's not like to the point where it's reliable for the mass market yet.
All right.
Yeah. Save your money.
Don't spend money.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay then, thank you so much. Okay, you can speak. That's
Oops.
I invited someone to speak.
We lost the
Okay.
person I think you were trying to bring up here.
Probably, yeah. Seems like it. New person. Oh, welcome.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Go ahead. Oh, okay, I have a problem and I need help with it.
All right.
You know how to fix problem when you became lucid and after some time your dream stops being lucid.
So maintaining lucidity. So losing lucidity in the dream, losing awareness.
Yes, yes.
So the basic fix to that is like because you can get caught up in the dream sometimes and like lose awareness, is to periodically while you're dreaming remind yourself, like every so often remind yourself that you're dreaming. That's like one of the main ways to fix that, is to just periodically remind yourself that you're dreaming when you are lucid. So that way part of you is still thinking about the fact that you're dreaming.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.
Wait, that was it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, well, we are now 1 minute overtime. Do we want to do overtime or do we want to end it here? I don't know.
Well, last week my team lost in overtime, so the less I think about overtime, the better, I think. But I would like to thank everyone,
That's not what I meant.
especially the 32 people who are still here. I'd like to thank everyone who stayed and watched the entire event. You guys are awesome, and we look forward to talking to everybody next week.
Yeah, thank you all so much. The recording will be available on YouTube when it eventually gets uploaded. And yeah, I think same time next week.
I
I
think,
think.
unless I think we have the daylight savings change, so unless we moved it back an hour.
Okay. So same time next week for if you're in EST or like US, right? But the time next week might change if you're in other places and you don't have a daylight saving change yet, or if you just don't have daylight savings.
So
in
basically
your
what we'll
location.
tell you is just keep an eye on the event, because the events do adjust time zones and they will respect where you are in the world. And so don't go by anything particular that we say in chat. Go by the event, because the event on the server will adjust to the correct time zones.
Correct. Good. Okay. Well, that concludes it. Thank you to amazing hosts Liam, Stifle. Thank you, Empyreal, for moderating the chat. That I moderated the chat. Okay, yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you all. I think that concludes it.
Cheers, everyone, and I will keep an eye out for you guys next week.
Goodbye.
And thank you for
Yeah.
hosting, Crystal.
Exactly. Thank you, Crystal.
Of course. Okay. See you next week.